Just let me know once we have it all figured out, because hopefully soon. Yeah, I don't want to put us behind any further than it could be. This is one of the longer categories after all. I would hope, but I don't know much about the speed gaming interface, so it is what it is. All right, I'll go ahead and jump to that. Okay. All right, Flotsam. I'll see you in marathon chat again. All right. I think we're good now this time. If so, if y'all can hear me, then here we go. So I'm gonna reintroduce myself and this game, but hello, my friends. If you haven't seen the last run, my name is still TempestMask1000, and I just did Mega Man Legends 3, the prologue 2D, but now we're gonna do a Mega Man game that, fan-made as it might look, is an actual licensed product of the X franchise. This game means a lot to me as a speedrunner and as a casual gamer because it's the first X game I properly owned. In fact, I have my cartridge right here to prove it. And so, it would also happen to be the very first game that I ever speedran. So this means quite a bit to me, and I always love to show it off to anybody willing to see what this good time is all about. So with that in mind, this will be run on the American version as compared to the Japanese version, which does save a bit of scrolling text time, but unfortunately the file that I normally use does not have the save data that allows me to access the mode we'll be using for this category, but that's no big deal, not the end of the world. I said that quite a few times in the last run, so I'll try to limit it here, but this is going to be any % extreme. The categories vary between X mission, 0 mission, and here extreme mode, which is something you have to unlock because this game does feature a battery for keeping your data in mind, which is pretty cool. This game was also released for Game Boy Color, by the way, and was put out in 2001, so it's technically 20 years old, believe it or not. But I'll explain a little bit more about the history as we're going through the run. I don't want to keep us waiting any further, but I will quickly show off my options. Here we have the select button set to X0 change, which is a character swap, also referred to as Buki change, or sorry, scramble change. That's what I meant to say because the first thing I said was actually weapon change, but yeah, scramble change in the Japanese version. We also have auto charge turned off and rapid fire turned on. This applies to X's Buster, and that's about it. So time will begin once I've selected Extreme Mode, and you will be seeing the game's true ending. Now, normally I would say if you don't want to get spoiled, feel free to tune out of the run, but of course, if you want to see the speed gaming happening, then you're at the right place. So without further ado, let's get going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. The game was doing a weird thing with the scrolling to the mode that I needed to select. Anyway, welcome to Mega Man Xtreme 2. This game came out before Mega Man X6, for better or for worse, but this is one of 2 pocket adventures with Mega Man Xtreme 1 providing a pocket adventure that was a bit more, I guess you could say, faithful to the original X game's level design for the content that it was basing itself off of, but had some original beats going for it as well. Mega Man Xtreme 2, however, ups the originality by just a bit more. That it's definitely what makes the game stand out to me, and so it's definitely a fun time, but there's definitely nothing wrong with Mega Man Xtreme 1. It's definitely a cool run in itself as well. I just do not currently speed through the game at the moment, but that's no big deal, because here, right now, the story takes place in between X3 and X4. That's why you saw Iris in the intro cutscene, who is alive and well. And the idea is that the Maverick Hunters received word that here in Laguz Island, some strange activity has been happening. All around the world, Reploids have been going motionless, as if their bodies have become completely hollow, and this has been dubbed the Erasure Incident. With X and Zero dispatched to Laguz Island to investigate, things are kind of bad here. So we're at the intro boss, and I like to call him Mega Skeletor. His real name is Skullhead, but it's more in the spirit of Mega Man X3, where runners like to refer to Mao the Giant, that intro boss of that game, as Mr. Fisty or Mr. Fist McGee. But yeah, Mega Skeletor for me because he reminds me of He-Man's villain undergoing Mega Evolution from Gen 6 Pokemon. Yeah! But anyway, we are now in another cutscene, and we are going to be introduced to one of the two main villains of this game, Gareth. Now, Gareth is what's called, as you're about to see with the English text, he calls himself a soul racer, where he claims he takes care of Mavericks, but obviously with X and Zero being Maverick Hunters, they find something very shifty about this guy, and so he says, well, fine. Let's just talk again after you've defeated this island's guardians. 8 guardians of this island that happen to be resurrected Mega Man X 1-3 Mavericks. For whatever reason. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can at least deduce that this isn't the involvement of Sigma, right? Right? Anyway, so Iris is also pointing out that the enemies have been dropping DNA from Reploids that have seemingly underwent erasure. So the pickups of this game will be referred to as DNA souls, which will serve as both health or weapon refills, but they have to be of a certain shape, and they'll also serve as our collectible currency to unlock parts, which I'm about to go to the shop right now, and thank goodness. So when I defeat a boss, they usually give me 200 DNA souls, but sometimes there is a RNG chance that you can get 100 instead, and if Skullhead gives me that, then I'm not looking in good shape for the optimal stuff within Sponge's stage here, which will be our first Maverick of the game. So Xtreme 2 is actually the very first X game to feature proper character swapping that you'll see a bit more fleshed out in games like Mega Man X7 and X8. Whether you have a positive opinion or negative one or not. But this game was the first to introduce that feature, and it's really cool too. Technically it adapts off of Zero being playable in X3, but at the same time, Zero's gameplay, as you're seeing right here, is a bit more based off of the PlayStation Mega Man X games. So if you've played Mega Man X4, you'd be a bit more familiar with the control scheming because his Buster is nowhere to be found. So one thing I immediately did at Iris's parts shop before we went to Sponge is collect the Saber +1 part, and this ups my damage by a little bit. And this early part purchase does make for a good... Whoa! Oh, that was so close. Starting strategy as we get to the boss himself. Now, Mega Man Xtreme stage design is a bit short, so don't be surprised if we get to the chamber as quick as possibly can. Or as I possibly can. So here's Sponge. If you played Mega Man X2, you're familiar with this guy. One interesting quirk about him in this game is that if you're fighting him on Zero Mission particularly, you can walk into the strike chain and you will not take damage, but you will if it's the tip. I'm not going to strike him just yet. Hang on. Let's see if I can get him a couple more times, and there we go. That is a good, clean fight. If I went a little more under that health before I took the pause, he would have went into his enraged state, which is one of the only desperation phases of the game where a boss will be invulnerable during such, and we do not like angry Sponge. So another thing that was important was I finished the boss as Zero, and that's because one flaw of the character swap system in Xtreme 2 is that the person that defeats a Maverick is the only one that will get the weapon. In a similar vein, those who get the life ups in these games will be the one to benefit from them. So when you saw me pick it up as Zero in Sponge's level, only his health bar increased by a tiny percentage, whereas Mega Man X's won't. I'll be trying to balance the health distribution between the two evenly, especially since there will be a safety armor pickup that I will be getting for Zero in a later level. And yes, you heard me right, Zero. Normally you would scratch your head at that because it's Mega Man X that gets the armor capsules from his dead father/creator, Dr. Light. But it would seem as though the good doctor has made some capsules for Zero this time, which is funny because y'all would know if you've played X5 that there was the black Zero armor capsule in that game, or the ultimate capsule if you're ultimate armor capsule if you're doing it as X. But here, no, Light made a full set of 4 upgrades for Zero here, but we only want this one for the most part because the arm parts gives Zero Final, which is one of his strongest techniques. And so by having this, we now effectively have a 1,000 degree knife that will cut through butter like nobody's business. That's the best way to put it. Anyway, so shout out to YouTube memes. Alright, so now I'm in the ride armor. It works similar to X2, if you will. This one has jetpack flight or jetpack hovering. There's a spiky punch. If you play as X and you have charge shot, if you have the charge shot available to you, you can actually do like a little charge dash punch as him, but we will not be seeing that because with rapid fire on, charging is not possible as X. There will be something that allows us to do charge shots though, but the reason we don't need it right now is because with bosses, the damage table has it weirdly programmed where charge shots do the same damage as normal shots will to the bosses, so rapid fire is much more useful in this game. Funnily enough, in Extreme 1 speedrunning, auto-charging actually sees quite a bit of use instead of rapid fire, so it's kind of funny how that sort of plays out. Not sure what Capcom was necessarily thinking when making this game, but it's not the worst thing around. But like I said, we do want to use Zero Final, and I just realized I screwed up just a tad bit in forgetting to claim a part, but that's no big deal because that means I can always get it back a little later, or rather very soon. Let's just try and get rid of Tunnel Rhino as fast as I can because you all know that touching a metallic rhino's heavy body is going to do a lot of damage to you, and Zero does not like that. So that was a pretty good fight, no disastrous effects. By the way, you did see me pick up an extra life at Wire Sponge's stage. That's practically the only life or extra life drop within the game that, as far as I know, exists. Don't know why that is, but it is what it is, and now we have a cutscene for having defeated our second Maverick, where we are introduced to Gareth's creator and the other Solar Racer, Burkana. She's a bit of an interesting case considering that Mega Man games don't normally have main female villains, so Burkana would technically be the first because this game came out before Mega Man X Command Mission with the more notably popular Ferrum. I would argue that Burkana as a character does the enemy role a lot more effectively, but shout out to Ferrum and Burkana all the same. I always thought that was a really cool detail anyway, but now I'm going to get the Energy Saver, which is what I would have done before we got to Tunnel Rhino, but now I'm also entering both Catfish Escape. So, the top layer of Mavericks here, those normally are what you see in X Mission, and the bottom layer are the ones in Zero Mission, meaning that when you do one or the other, you actually get 4 Mavericks, making those categories or playthroughs of the game a lot briefer, really. And it's kind of interesting because this varies up their gameplay respectively and allows for a few different quirks here and there, but by beating the game as both X and Zero within a single playthrough, but this also does require using a sort of cross-save feature, if you will, that's when you will unlock Extreme Mode. Or you can also get a ton of DNA souls, which will then unlock a part that allows you to insta-unlock it once you've purchased it from Iris's shop. So those are the ways to get this mode. In a similar vein, there is a boss attack mode as well, and you can either get that part or beat Extreme Mode for the first time, and there you go. So despite that capsule having Zero's color palette, this actually does belong to X, and I did want to switch to him before I got there, but no big deal. We are going to get the one and only armor capsule piece for X, and those are his leg parts. You noticed that when I was playing as Zero, I had the air dash as a standard feature, but by getting the leg parts for X, now he has it, and also gets his X3 vertical upwards air dash, which is useful in quite a few places. This one particularly, this one first, because by skipping that wave that comes at me, I can avoid getting pushed, which can also be a bit dangerous because then it can push me into the spikes, which would then instant kill me, and we don't like that. But also, it's just more annoying than anything else. But I skipped that wave as fast as I could before it showed up in that room, because from here on out, after that one with the waves that push you, come waves that insta-kill you because they're filled with electricity. But those were the only two rooms that such was happening. We're actually right near the boss chamber, and now I'm going to switch to 0 and equip the energy saver part, and what this does is it halves energy consumption, which is very important because you noticed how much of the bars 1-0 final took. So now we can do 2, and this makes boss fights a whole lot quicker. And this is the true power of our 1000 degree knife. And there we go. Cool. I would argue that Volt Catfish is one of the more annoying bosses to take care of casually without his weakness, which is Neon Tiger's Rayclaw for X, or the Rising for 0. A silly little thing is that whenever you hit a boss with their weakness as X, you get a little stun animation going, which is why in X mission, getting the Rayclaw is a lot more optimal, because then it allows you to stun lock the boss and effectively render him unable to attack, and then just have him explode. Cool stuff, really. Anyway, here's Overdrive Ostrich, and it's at this point that in the any % extreme category, I can do a little optional routing as I so choose, but there are certain Mavericks that I want to do in certain order, you get what I mean. So here's Overdrive Ostrich though, and that was the Ride Chaser. This is the only level to use that, of course. The controls are a little more janky than what you might be used to, because that was a fixed speed for 1, but 2, we also want to be I want to be attacking a little bit more so with the up direction as compared to the attack button, because the jank gives you a little more movement when you do it that way, per se. That's all I'm real, but that's about it. Anyway, that was a very clean section right there. I call that middle ground, and throughout there were these, I refer to them as sandstorm, tornado generators. Those are instant kill traps, so if I were to take damage, that would cost me a life, and we do not like that. So, one thing about this game is you've seen a lot of screen flashing, right? Well, whenever that happens during a level, chances are that's the game telling me that I've reached a checkpoint. And one very nifty thing about the checkpoints, at least the ones with the little platforms, Focus once referred to them as Metal Oreos. It's a very funny but very creative name for them. Hitting those checkpoints allows the game's backup battery to then do an autosave, which is very, very helpful. Alright, I'm going to focus really quick for this fight because I'm at low health. Actually, I'm going to take Safety Death because, you know what, Ostrich can be a bit unpredictable, and it's probably for the better. But yeah, whenever you cross those platforms and activate a checkpoint that way, this allows you to soft reset the game and then go to the continue screen where the game then prompts you if you want to use that autosave point or not. Now, you can only do this once per autosave. Keep that in mind, but it is a very helpful trick that can help me get back on track quicker than having to start the level from scratch. So it's a really nice thing, and I'm pretty sure that the autosave system is also present within Extreme 1 as well. So that was Overdrive Ostrich. You saw me use the Drill Crush that I got from Tunnel Rhino. It's a weapon, or sorry, technique, because Zero does use techniques instead of X with his weapons. But it costs no ammo, which is very helpful, and it is also the weakness for a later on boss that we will be getting to in due time. For now, though, here's Blast Hornet, and if you've played X3, you might not recognize this level. As it would happen with the X2 and X3 bosses, the stage architecture and design takes a very huge revamping, and in Blast Hornet it is especially the case here. And honestly, I prefer this version over the X3 level. In fact, I would say this is one of my favorite stages of Xtreme 2 as a whole. But anyway, I'm going to do a little trick. I'm just going to let these guys come down at me, and then dash, dash, dash again, and that is the Zorn skip found by young Zorn. So shout out to Zorn. She's pretty cool gamer. And so what that did was I got the dash technique from Overdrive Ostrich, which interestingly enough seems to recover Zero's ability to air dash once it's used after having been done once. So it can potentially save just a little bit of time. It's definitely not necessary, but I like to show it off when I can. Otherwise, that little section skip using X is something you can also do as Zero, but it's a little bit harder. All the same, I'm going to get this armor capsule because this is the body parts for Zero. This is that little safety measure that I mentioned or alluded to. And the body parts have Zero's damage. It also would do that for X, but also give him the Giga Crush. We don't need that for X, though. Zero is practically our main combatant here, so all is good. I used the dash technique to take out all those enemies in one fell swoop because the game does wait for you to get rid of all of them before it opens up the way, so it's a really, really nice trick. And now here we have a mini-boss, which Zorn and I refer to as Blinker Wall. That was some very good RNG, but admittedly this boss is much easier on Extreme Mode because, as you saw right there, 2 lights turn on at a time, whereas in Zero Mission, you usually see it as 1 at a time. And that can lead to some very unfavorable RNG that, admittedly, the Zero Mission World Category World Record holder Poisson doesn't quite like the stage as much as I do, but shout out to Poisson all the same. Here's Blast Hornet. We want to be careful of the bees he shoots at us because Zero Final does target the first solid, I guess, damageable target that it can hit before the animation then continues. And, you know, we do not like misfires. That was Hornet. Dash is his weakness, or the Sonic Slicer, whatever you get from Overdrive Ostrich. That was a pretty decent fight, and now we'll be moving on to the next Maverick, which will be Neon Tiger from X3. So I'm just going to let you all enjoy the music as I give my voice a little bit of a break and also soda up just a bit, but also hydrate with some water as well. So here's My Michelle by Guns N' Roses. Alright, that was pretty good. So, with that first section that eventually saw me use the ride armor, I did want to give that life up to X so that I could start buffing his maximum health. But also with those damage boosts over the Canon Dumbs, I believe they're called, not unlike the virus names or virus equivalents in the Battle Network games, but with those enemies, I just wanted to damage boost over them because otherwise just trying to bust them is not all that accurate and just can get pretty annoying, so, you know, do the faster thing, basically. Okay, so now we got ourselves Neon Tiger, and for this fight, I'm going to want to finish him off as X in particular, because the Ray Claw weapon that he gets is definitely something you're going to want for the Maverick I would take on after that, and you'll see why. It's a really nice nod to an X1 weakness sort of thing, and I just screwed it up. Well then, okay, let's forget I just said any of that and move on. I was so distracted talking. I was bound to screw up at some point. Okay, so actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna soft reset for this one actually, because I can fix this. Okay, thank goodness for auto-saving. So, I wanted the Ray Claw because upon taking on Launch Octopus, there's a special unique weakness reaction that occurs when you hit Octopus with the Ray Claw for the first time, and so that allows for a very effective strat that makes the fight go all the quicker, and although it might make his pattern a little more annoying, it's also less dangerous that way, theoretically speaking. So, now I'm just gonna focus once again as I try to get it right this time. So let's go into serious mode, and here we go. Alright, there we go. This time I gotta just bust him down, and that's more like it. And that's the nice thing about this game. I would argue the autosave feature is probably one of the most beginner-friendly things about an X game as a whole, because otherwise you don't usually see it in X games. So, yeah, definitely consider the Game Boy Color games if you're willing to give a Mega Man X speedrun a try at some point. This can definitely, because, yeah, case in point, this can be very beginner-friendly for quite a number of very positive reasons. Other than that, though, let's go into Launch Octopus, and there is one silly thing that I would have loved to point out had I been playing on the Japanese ROM, but instead, you're going to hear the normal stage theme. Capcom accidentally programmed it on Rockman X2 Solar Racer, which is the Japanese title for Extreme 2, that if you jump into Launch Octopus's stage, you'll hear Flame Mammoth's theme instead, and in Flame Mammoth, you'll hear Octopus's theme. I don't know why, I don't know what exactly happened that warranted this, but it's a nice enough touch that the international version did manage to fix this one up, so if you like hearing your stage themes as intended, then all is well with the international version for sure. Now, if you are not one to, all for emulation and finding an original Game Boy Color cartridge is not quite your speed, Capcom did have Extreme 1 and 2, as well as the Rockman World or Mega Man Game Boy Classic games, all ported to Nintendo Virtual Console. You can find it on the Nintendo 3DS. Unfortunately, with Nintendo's current decision to shut down eStore downloads for the 3DS and the Wii U in this month of next year, there's not necessarily much time to do it that way if you so choose to. But at the same time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with emulating this game. It's how I managed to, but I do make it a point to eventually get a legit Japanese cartridge when the time is right. Anyway, that was the Utuboros. You all know that you would normally see one of these guys when you face Launch Octopus in X1 anyway, so, you know, it's just a matter of having to take care of this fella. And that's about it. But now we're going to, as Focus Sight likes to call it, make some calamari. I've equipped the Ray Claw, and I'll let the fight speak for itself. Don't blink. And there you go. Calamari served fresh and ripe for the taking. Soda up. So, what exactly happened was, for those that are very familiar with the boomerang cutter being used to destroy Launch Octopus's tentacles in Mega Man X1, this is the same effect here, but using the Ray Claw. And this puts him in a much longer stun animation that by the time he gets out of it, he loses his ability to do most of his attacks, but then he continuously jumps and shoots missiles at you. Arguably, that can make him a bit more dangerous, but it's still a very effective strat that does render one of his more annoying attacks, the life-draining tornado, useless, so all is well in the world. But now I'm going to do a series of damage boosts on the lava because here's another quirk that differs between playing this level on X mission and extreme mode. Those fireballs that you just saw shooting out of the floor do normal damage in X mission, but in extreme, they instant kill you. Not sure why Capcom necessarily did that, but it's something to keep in mind. At least it's definitely enough damage that it might as well instant kill you no matter what you do. I have yet to see any instance where 0 or X has been buffed enough that I've negated that effect, but I'm not betting any money on it at the same time, so you know. We're at the end of the level, and oh yeah, Flame Mammoth is the final Maverick, so let's get ready to get into the Fortress stages right after this, because you've noticed that I haven't made any future purchases, and the reason for that is DNA Souls unlock parts that allow them to be bought at the parts shop. However, in order to unlock a part at the shop, you have to not spend your DNA Souls. So the idea of unlocking, say, the Saber plus 1, very sorry for that Windows sound effect, by the way, that was a very odd notification. Thank you, Windows Defender, for doing that. But, as I was going to say... Great, now I lost my train of thought. You have to not spend DNA Souls and then get a certain total to then unlock a series of very helpful parts. It doesn't seem like I have them just yet, though, so I'm going to have to proceed on for just a couple more stages, and then I'll be able to buy them. I kind of forget if you normally have them available if all things go normally at this point, or perhaps I could just have it all mistaken and this is technically what's supposed to happen anyway. Who knows? Sometimes you've played this game long enough that you think you know, but then in the end, you don't necessarily know. Sponsored by Snickers. Okay, not really sponsored by Snickers. But you're not yourself when you're hungry. Anyway... So, yeah. Again, very sorry about the Windows Defender notification. That was very out of the blue. Ha! I'm playing as X. Just roll with it. I'm trying not to make puns here. It's the first technical pun of the run. Anyway. Okay, so. We've reached the end of the stage. And now let's get reintroduced to a robotic wolfo, or doggo, if that's what you prefer, Velgarder. Normally you see him before Sigma in X1, but he starts as the first Fortress boss, so we want to be a little careful because he can be annoying to handle, especially when you have normal damage being taken by 0 without the body part. So, in a way, he's kind of the easiest thing to take care of when you're doing an X mission run, and easier to take care of in extreme, but also when it comes to 0 mission, he's ironically hard. Alright, so, we've moved into Fortress Stage 2, and I'm going to perform a skip called Platform Skip. It's a series of damage skips that allows me to traverse this instant kill electric floor by doing that. And there we go, first try. So, the dash works in a couple of different ways. Because the Game Boy Color did not have any shoulder buttons, how this all worked was you either had to double tap a direction, like double tap left or right, which is something that the other X games normally let you do anyway. Oh, that was close. And then there's the Mega Man Zero method, where you hold down and then press the jump button. At least I think the Zero games allowed you to do that, if memory serves me right. So, dashing might be a bit hard at first because, again, no proper dash button, but that's just the way it works. As it would happen, though, Extreme 1 did have a dash button, except they tried to put that into the select button, so it's probably for the better that Extreme 2 opted not to go in that same direction. Also, that was a not-so-good floating platform spawn position, but hey, we got through it. So now, we're back to some more Rising Lava, which is something you saw me traverse through in Tunnel Rhino. That doesn't instant kill you if it wasn't obvious, so you know. All's well with the world if I were to touch it. Alright, let's just go up here and try to avoid... Well, that little bugger before the boss gate usually is a bit of annoyance anyway, so what difference does it make? But here is a very casually infamous boss by the name of Isaz in Suilo. This giant Sigma-like headed tank is taking a lot of screen space, and that's never good usually. So the idea is there are these two faces, each of them share half of the health bar. I want to take them out as fast as possible. Their attacks can be really annoying to handle though. That's why it's nice enough that the Drill Crush is their weakness, but using that in tandem with the Zero Final can normally make this fight go nicely. I did want to be very careful though not to die there, so we managed to go with this fight deathless, and all is once again well in the world. But now I'm going to buy a bunch of parts. Also, if you do hit Isaz and Suilo's body with Zero's Z-Saber strikes, it does push them back, so you can open up a little bit of different distance that way. You notice, by the way, that I've been switching throughout the run and all that stuff between characters, but you can actually do that in X mission and Zero mission. Not a feature you have immediately, though. You have to defeat the 4 Mavericks within those respective missions first, and then you're able to do it. And that's what makes the cutscene after you defeated your last Maverick a little bit longer in those, but not so much in Extreme mode. It's intentionally shorter because we could already do that from the get-go. So at this point, I've equipped the parts that I purchased from the shop. We got Buster +1, Buster +2, and Ultimate Buster for X, and then Saber +2 for Zero. So now Zero's Saber can do even more damage, which is nice, but so can X's Buster. And that's why we want to use Rapid Fire, because Rapid Fire in combination with our souped up Buster can really destroy things. But then I also got Ultimate Buster, which does turn X's shots into charge shots. Now you did hear me mention that charge shots do the same amount of damage, or just about the same amount of damage as a normal shot on a boss, so you might be wondering, well, why is that? The final boss in this game can only get damaged by X if he's using a charge shot, so that will come in handy once we get to Phase 2. But that's still a little bit of a ways away, we're not quite close just yet. However, if you were to play X mission, then this level, or Zero mission, then Fortress 3 would be your last, because the game normally ends within those two modes once you've beaten Berkana or Gareth. The reason I wanted to switch to X before I activated that cutscene is that in Extreme mode, the game detects which character you're playing as and gives you either Gareth or Berkana if you're Zero or X respectively. And X fighting Berkana is much safer and much faster compared to Gareth's half RNG fight, which, you know, it could be faster, but why bother taking the chance, is what I'm trying to get at anyway. Berkana's stage, though, is also a must for the 100% Extreme category because there is a little 100% completion bonus as like an extra upgrade for X once you've collected everything, and you do need to go into a false electrical wall within that vertical climb section in order to find it. Speaking of vertical stuff, that air dash was pretty important in order to clear that little death wave, death room, whatever. Basically, the game seems to have it where you have to get the leg parts for X in order to clear Berkana's room, otherwise you can't seemingly do that. I don't know if there's a way, I don't know if there's like a solution, but it is what it is. Berkana like to use the alphabet against us, by the way, so we normally don't like the alphabet because those A and B spheres can lock my button inputs until it wears off, and when I do get hit by those, she turns the floor or walls into spikes. And in the case of the B sphere, it turned the floor into spikes, and she tries to throw cyber ice at me. It's not a good time when I can't shoot. But, oh jeez, it turns out Sigma was behind this Erasure incident all along. Oh joy. Water is wet, my friends. Anyway, this is the final level that you normally get access to in Extreme mode. So you don't typically see this in X mission or Zero mission. And, my friends, what is The one typical thing that you would see in an X game, or any Mega Man game for that matter. I'll give you 10 seconds. Or maybe not, because time's already up. It's a boss rush. So now I have to face all the 8 Mavericks again. This time we've got a much more powered up arsenal. I'm going to try and use X and Zero effectively here, but Flame Mammoth did remind me of something I also neglected to mention. That little move where he shot fireballs up into the air is something that you will only see him do in extreme mode. Bosses have either a different damage output or an extra move to use in extreme mode, which is a really interesting little detail, a nice little way to vary things up a bit. But yeah, I'm just gonna give myself serious time. Oh hey, there's Tunnel Rhino's extra move right there. Okay. Also, yeah, you saw Sigma say, now is the time to destroy. As per usual, X games in English sometimes have the darnest of grammar yet. And I'm pretty sure I just botched up that grammar myself, so I'm continuing the cycle. Yay! But I'm going to give myself a bit of serious time as I go through, try to shred through these bosses as fast as I can. I do want to say, though, that I'm looking on a really good pace and that this run could very well PB at the end, so let's see what happens. I will say, though, that we've already passed world record time, which Poisson currently holds around the 33-minute mark, so no worries, but PBs are always, always nice. So, not to jinx myself or anything, any last-minute hazards could certainly make themselves known, like, very soon or whatnot. But yeah, back to Sponge. I'm gonna try and use those Zero finals to take care of him before he gets angry. And I inadvertently activated that angry mode, so now you get to see what happens when he spews off his lightning. In extreme mode, it tries to home in on you. In Zero Mission, you can manipulate it not to hit you as long as he's right next to a wall and you're clinging onto that wall, so, you know. But back to Catfish. I guess what I could do is use the other one on him. And I think I will in just a moment. And there you go. Although I guess I could have done it on Octopus too, really. Eh. Alright, back to Ostrich. Blah! Bird is the word, my friends. Bird is the word. He's reminding us all that if he does go off the screen, he'll try to do that backwards running and jumping attack. So he's a lot more susceptible to doing it in extreme mode, but you can more or less manipulate him not to do it in Zero Mission. Let's make some more calamari, and I hope you all are hungry for round 2. Perfect. And that's all the Mavericks. So now we're coming up to the final boss, which will be in 2 phases. Sigma represents his first phase as Neo Sigma, which you might recall from Mega Man X2, aka Wolverine Rip-Off Sigma. Marvel, please do not sue. This form is a lot more susceptible to Zero doing an air dash slash for some reason, but that's what I'm going to use. Quick warning though, this game will have an abundance of flashing once we get into phase 2, so be very careful if you are prone to any epileptic seizures or anything like that, but here we go. So now comes this game's original phase, Sigma Beast. And the flashing will occur whenever I try to damage him. But as I mentioned before, X's charge shots are what's capable of damaging him, so can Zero's Saber, but I'm going to mostly rely on that And I would also like to point out that this is probably my favorite rendition of the final boss music in X2, much more so than X2 itself. This is just a lot more epic. Shout out to Xtreme 2's soundtrack. It might be a bit shorter, and it might be missing certain portions of the composition here and there, but it's a really cool soundtrack. So now that he's gone to half health, Sigma has engaged his color mode where he will enter red and only 0 can damage him during that phase, so I gotta try and slash above his knee. And if he turns blue, then only X can damage him. I want to avoid that drop because, thank God for that. In my previous run with Extreme mode, it happened where his hitbox was constantly crushing me that it basically turned into an instant kill. Alright, one more hit on Sigma himself, and time will be up after I've defeated him, so let's get ready on that, and... time! 41:25.99 is a PB, and that, my friends, is any % extreme. Let's go. Whew! And I hope you all enjoyed that run, because any % extreme is one of the last categories that I needed to do to complete my little any % trifecta. So I'm not the most experienced with it yet, but it was certainly a long time coming, and my progress so far has certainly made quite a few leaps. So I'm very happy with this run, and I hope you all enjoyed. With the defeat of Sigma, all of the Reploid souls go back to everybody. All is right within the world. Unfortunately, Berkana and Gareth are no more, but their misguided selves shall no longer plague the innocent, basically. Also, that color palette of Iris is her actual accurate color palette for this Extreme 2 design. Whenever you saw her with the other one, that supposedly wasn't it. The official art of her design in Extreme 2 is actually the one you see there, but you only see that little cutscene CG in Gareth's chamber, so yeah, we don't normally see it here. Alright, supreme job! Thank you, Iris. So, like I said, this is when you get boss attack mode, but that's a story for another time. I'd like to thank FloatSim for accepting my runs into Obscurathon, and I'd like to thank Speed Gaming for having me on. It's always nice to get to show off some of my favorite games. I love Mega Man speedrunning, and if you all are interested, feel free to join the Discord communities. You can find the links located within the Mega Man RT Leaderboard's website. There's also a Reddit community for that leaderboard as well. But yeah, shout out to the Mega Man X speedrunning community. Shout out to Focusite, Poisson, Phazon Knight, Zorn, Elpis, anyone that's run Extreme 2. Just thank you for being a part of this small handful of people that have run this hidden gem, in my opinion. Like I said, this game was my very first speedrun, so it means a lot to me. And yeah, I will definitely continue to play this game for as long as I need to, but all the same, I hope you guys will enjoy the rest of this marathon, because very soon my good friend LOZ CardsFan23 and Charlie as well will be showing Dossylvania. Coming up next, though, is a different run, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. And yeah, if you guys want to check me out, I am TempestMask1000 on Twitch. You can also check out my YouTube channel if you feel inclined to. Of course, no following is necessary, only if you want to, but any hellos and whatever is very much appreciated. With that said, though, I'm going to pass it on back to the marathon itself. So until we meet again, oh, by the way, thank you all for having me on my birthday. What a time to have a speed run, I gotta say. Let's go 25. Until next time, everybody, ciao amici.